This has helped many companies to surge ahead with sound professional management practices.
A growing economy often ushers in new trends in the market. Regular seminars and interactive workshops are conducted by KMA to keep up with the ever-changing market requirements.
A 2-day annual management convention is conducted during the first quarter of every year, which is attended by over 1,000 delegates from all across Kerala. Eminent speakers of national and international repute lead this prestigious event.
KMA's many successful initiatives are very popular among its members. Some such initiatives are
Evening lectures by eminent people,
CEO Conclave,
Management Students Forum,
Young Managers Forum,
sector-specific seminars.
Women Managers Forum.
KMA is active in the social media networking sites and also has a comprehensive website www.kma.org.in.
KMA is managed by a managing committee comprising of prominent industry and corporate heads and functions at its own premises at Panambali Nagar, Cochin, which also houses spacious conference halls, classrooms and a library.
Based on their yearly performance, corporate companies are awarded KMA's Excellence Awards in 5 different categories, which promote healthy competition for excellence among members.
Membership. A membership in KMA offers opportunities to interact with the top management leaders in Kerala to share knowledge and skills, thereby commanding respect and credibility to your organization. Corporate membership is open to business houses, government enterprises, and educational institutions, etc.
Any individual who meets the norms set by KMA can enroll as life members on payment of the fees as a lump sum and half the fee for a senior citizen.
For more details, please contact Executive Director, Kerala Management Association.
Can we start? A warm good evening to one and all. Let's begin with a silent prayer. It says, when you hear God's silence and feel his absence, trust his presence. The world has gone through upheaval. Lives have been toppled and lost. A new normal will hopefully be emerging soon. Thank you. Our dear and highly committed president is present here, but unfortunately, he will not be able to address us today. Welcome, President, and thank you for joining us. Chief guest of the evening, Mr. Sudhir Kumar, Senior Partner and Head Corporate Communications for the Creston Menon Group. Program Committee Chair, Mr. Past President, Mr. S.R. Nair. Past Presidents, I can see Mr. A.K. Nair, Executive Committee Member, Vice President A.B.K. A. Balakrishnan, Mr. Bibu Punaran, Treasurer, other Managing Committee members, members of Kerala Management Association, invited guests, students, a warm good evening and a hearty welcome to each and every one of you. KMA is spearheading responsible management. We organize activities and programs for our members. If may I mention a few, this year a new initiative introduced by our past president that's called StartCon, focusing on the success of successful startups and their organizations. We organize seminars, training workshop, lecture meetings, and panel discussion, management celebrations, women's managers programs, management student programs, MSME, CEOs conclave, young managers contest, annual conventions, etc., and many, many more. Today, we are conducting the 22nd evening lecture. We organized all 21 evening lectures we have had so far. Current and relevant topics were dealt with by well-known speakers and subject experts. Today, we are again blessed to have the most pertinent topic and an exceptional speaker. Entrepreneurial nation skill up, startup, and scale up. And the speaker is eloquent speaker, Mrs. Sudhir Kumar. Entrepreneurship accelerates economic growth. Entrepreneurs are important to market economies because they can act as the wheels of the economic growth of the country. By creating new products and services, they stimulate new employment, which ultimately results in acceleration of economic development. Startup entrepreneurship is crucial because of innovations, new jobs, and bringing competitive dynamics into the business environment. In the 2021 report, 50,000 startups across have been organized as startup by DPIIT, of which 19,896 have been recognized since April 2020. With the launch of the Startup India initiative, recognized startups have now spread across 623 districts. Each state and union territory has at least one startup. The Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, that is DPIIT, is a central government department under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry in India. We are indeed privileged and honored to have Mr. Sudhir Kumar, the Senior Partner and Head Corporate Communications for Creston Menon Group and the Chief Executive Officer for Creston ME Consultancy, the management and business consulting entity of the Creston Menon Group. Mr. Sudhir Kumar is an energetic speaker in many UAE regional and international conferences. I'm sure we are all looking forward to hearing novel thoughts and new ideas from you, sir. To introduce this eminent personality and to moderate the session, we have our own pride, Mr. S.R. Nair, past president of KMA, program committee chair, director Mentor Guru, a social entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, author, and true mentor to many. Proudly welcoming you, Mr. S.R. Nair. Please take this forward.
Thank you, Senior Vice President and Chairperson of the session, Nirmala Lele, our beloved President, Madhav Chandran, my MC members, former past President, some of the very, very distinguished invitees, including Mr. V. Suresh, who had actually been part of our panel last month. Okay, I will be doing two things. I'll start with the kick off this subject along with the introduction of Mr. Sudhir Kumar, post which he would be doing the presentation. And after the presentation, I shall be moderating the session along with the questions received from you. In case you have any questions, you will be putting it into the chat board. I will take it from there, identify you, and then ask these questions on your behalf. Most of all of you will be muted until then, and we'll keep forward. So let me start. See, I have been to UAE several number of times. So over the last 25 years, and every time I visit this place, UAE means I'm with more focus on Dubai. Okay, I see greater developments and changes that is happening in the UAE. Okay, and every visit that I made to UAE had invigorated me and given me more and more ideas about things that we could do, about things that industry can do. Okay, no doubt, Dubai is progressing as a leading future city of the world compared to a little over careful Hong Kong and conservative Singapore, etc. that we have seen the Asian sector. Okay, Dubai, particularly Dubai, is truly cosmopolitan. Okay, and a major business center for doing business in all of the GCC, the North African countries, and the Central Asia. Okay, now we Keralites are quite familiar to Middle East and Dubai. In fact, jokingly we say that the capital of Kerala is Dubai. Okay, And most of us are aware as to what are the things that is there, and most of us must have actually been there at least once or twice in our lifetime. Okay. But we would like to know what's happening to that country and what's happening to the city and what's happening to that part of the world we call GCC or Middle East or Western Asian countries. Okay. And no, there is nobody better than Mr. Sudhir Kumar, who is a senior partner and head corporate communications of Creston Menon Group, which is one of the leading business consulting group in Dubai, in the Middle East, to tell us the story about vibrant Middle East that we come across. Okay. Now let me, the theme is today's theme is entrepreneurial nation, scale up, startup and scale up business in UAE. Let me also read out his resume for your benefit. Yeah. Mr. Sudhir Kumar is an electronics engineer with over 33 years of business acumen in UAE market in the field of management, marketing, sales, corporate communications, branding, consulting, strategies, operations, and procurement. He has had over 2 years of experience in India and 1 year experience in Bahrain before moving into UAE in the 1990s. He is a senior partner and head corporate communication for Creston Menon Group and the chief executive officer of the Creston ME Consulting, the management and business consulting entity of Creston Menon Group. He is also spearheading the digital transformations, digital and social media branding, and D&I arms of Creston Menon Group in the Middle East. Sudhir Kumar is an active speaker in many UAE regional and international conferences. He had represented the Dubai government entities and other UAE government entities in many UAE government supported investment summits and conclaves globally. He has organized and spoken of doing business in Dubai and UAE in bespoke FPI summits focused on HNIs and conducted a full partnership with Dubai government entities and the free zones in various countries, including India, of course, New Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, all over the place. He is a mentor and a regular speaker in many universities in the UAE, including the Dubai Women College as part of the higher Women College, part of the Higher College of Technology UAE. He is also a regular speaker in all Creston International Global Conferences, and his topic was the India UAE New Growth Story post 2014. During the last Global Summit, he did that actually in New Delhi in 2019. Okay, with 245 Creston Menon family members from 65 countries attending it. His comments are sought after by the leading newspapers in the UAE, India, and many other countries. And he is regularly interviewed by the radio, television, and the social media on their primetime international business programs, focusing on UAE and the region. He had attended as a delegate in more than 8 Pravasi Bharati Divas events organized by the Ministry of External Affairs, India, and also participated and exhibited in more than 5 vibrant Gujarat Summit business conclaves organized by the government of Gujarat in India. He is also regularly invited and he attends all the major business meets and conferences in different parts of India, organized by Government of India, government of media and media houses and other trade organizations and corporates. He is also a regular speaker for trade bodies and trade association, which are part of FICCI, CII, etc., etc. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my proud privilege to present Mr. Sudhir Kumar to you. Sudhir, you could present the theme, and post which I shall be doing the moderation, picking up questions from the audience who will be sending it through the chat board. All yours. Okay. Prajit, please help.
Thank you, S.R. Nair, Chair of the meeting and Senior Vice President of Kerala Management Association, Madam Nirmala Lily, President of Kerala Management Association, Mr. Madhav Chandran, former President and Moderator of the event, Mr. S.R. Nair, Treasurer of KMA, Mr. Bibu Punuran, Secretary of KMA, Mr. Jomon George, distinguished members of Kerala Management Association, invited guests, students, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you. I'm delighted and honored to be here this evening. Thank you for inviting me here. Entrepreneurial skills. Skill up, startup, and scale up businesses in UAE is all about what UAE has achieved in the last 50 years and how UAE is planning and preparing for the next 50 years. It's a journey from 1971 to 2021 and from 2021 to 2071. UAE is ready and getting ready for the future. May I borrow the words of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and the ruler of Dubai. His Highness says, connected thinking is the best hope for progress and for peaceful and successful existence for generations to come. These connections between people, nations, and ideas created Dubai itself. From a tiny village in the early 20th century to a bustling metropolis as it is today, Dubai is a manifestation of connectivity. So ladies and gentlemen, we are here to get connected for the future. UAE has 42 free zones covering the entire gamut of industries. Free zones contribute significantly to the GDP of UAE and all the Emirates, with more than 50,000 companies in the free zones, generating a trade volume of $450 billion. Free zones are strategic areas for development and growth. Foreign companies will come up and set up their operations in free zones and then diversify to the UAE different parts as well as to the region. The reason for this success, the script of UAE and all the Emirates are written by the visionary rulers who have got only one thought in their minds. Growth, rapid growth, aggressive growth, sustainable growth, and inclusive growth. So in my presentation, I will be talking on what UAE has achieved here and how UAE is growing for the future. In the book, My Vision, Challenges in the Race for Excellence, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and the ruler of Dubai, says, we have succeeded because we always believed tomorrow is a new day and yesterday's achievements are in the past, and history will only record what we will achieve in the future, not what we have achieved in the past. With that, UAE is inviting you, calling all the people of the world, entrepreneurs, to come up in UAE, all dreamers, all startups, all SMEs, all MSMEs, entrepreneurs, multinational companies, to come in the UAE and start their skill up, startup, and scale up their businesses internationally. Now, may I give me a second to share my presentation, please?
Yes.
Thank you. In this presentation, I know most of you or all of you had visited UAE, had visited Dubai many a times. Most of you or many of you may be doing businesses also here and have clients in Dubai and UAE also. So for the benefit of people who may not know, I will start with some basics and I'll go fast, taking the time factor into concern. And definitely we have a Q&A session where we have ample time to answer any queries. UAE as a snapshot is 7 independent emirates. It's a very young nation, 50 years, celebrated Golden Jubilee in 2021. There are 7 emirates. Abu Dhabi is the capital, Sharjah, Ajman, Ras Al Khaimah, Al Quwain, and Fujairah. The important point is population is 10.1 million in UAE, 200 plus nationalities, covering 90% of the population. 10% is UAE nationals. It's a gateway to Middle East market, connecting link between East and West. there are different kind of companies, UAE national owned, non-UAE national owned companies, the Middle East headquarters of international companies, most of them. If you take Glaxo, you have Johnson & Johnson, if you take Unilever, you take any of the Roche, Novartis, any of the products, they have their Middle East headquarters in UAE and been established for long years, and they do manufacturing also here. And the lower number of public listed companies. It's one of the busiest trading hub in the Middle East with high per capita income, no foreign exchange control quotas or barriers, 5% customs import duty, and no income tax. Corporate tax is 9% declared now. It's coming in June 2023. No withholding tax, VAT is there, 5%. It's the most modern infrastructure. Even though if you go anywhere in the GCC, why people come to UAE, why people come to Dubai is, there are many GCC countries which have got higher GDP. They are considered richer than UAE and Dubai. But if you go and compare, you can see the best of roads, best of infrastructure, the first metro, the tallest building. If you go to office space, the network connection, the number of mobile users, the entertainment spots, number of restaurants for multinational communities to come and live. You have 100% ownership on properties. All these are available only in UAE. Very proximity to Indian subcontinent, the largest seaports and airports. Then there are certain rankings which some people may like to look onto. The FDI inflows in 2020, you can see US dollar 19.88 billion. Total FDI stock is almost USD 174 billion. FDI into Dubai, USD 24.7 billion into Dubai alone. And non-oil foreign trade is standing at 382 billion. World Bank's ease of doing business ranked 16, it's improving, and globally ranked on FDI 15. The uniqueness here is 150 shipping lines and 90 weekly services. Any part of the world you can go maximum 25, 30 days. That's why global companies come up here. Many Indian companies also, if you talk of Tanishq, you're talking of Himalaya, you have got talking of Dabur, you're talking of Birla Group, everything is here. Ashok Leyland, they're all based here and do business with the rest of the world. This is an idea of the population in which if you come and set up operations in Dubai, the region you do business with is the region here with their GDP and the population. So FMCG companies are very focused here to tackle this region because, say, for example, Dabur or Himalaya, many others. Now, UAE profile, if I take UAE population, as I said, 10.1 million, GDP is $410 billion. UAE trade, oil and non-oil trade is 321 billion and 34 ranked for GDP, or 24 for per capita income, and 25 for global trade and 7 in oil reserves. This is just a total global population. Now coming to Dubai, when I come to Dubai, I say more of Dubai because if I take all of UAE, the maximum business happens here. That's the only reason. Other Emirates are doing very well. They are also catching up. They are also growing up. They all have the same laws. UAE trade volume is 321.8, 715 hotels in Dubai with 160,000 rooms. This includes the 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, and the hotel apartments. And another 30 hotels are coming this year. And these are all huge brands coming up again here with different themes. 140 airlines, 150 shipping lines, 52 banks, and 3.4 million is the population of the 10.1. The tourism numbers are less. It was actually much more, 3 times more, but now it has come down because of the challenges we face. Now, setting up a business, you have mainland options, you have free zone options. And now licensing in mainland, I'll quickly go, the manufacturing, trading, services, professional activities, as well. The authorities are Department of Economic Development, Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology, Ministry of Economy, UAE Central Bank, and these are for the Central Bank for banking and exchange purposes related. Limited liability company is one form of company, which is manufacturing trading services, 100% ownership now. There was 5149 before, it's now 100% ownership, no capitalization minimum, but For industrial, you need to show UAE dirhams 250,000. Civil company, which is a professional firm, consulting professional activities, 100% foreign ownership. Now you go to a branch of a foreign company like architectural engineering firm, specialized construction, specialized, a lot of companies are here in this from India as well as different parts of the world. And only thing is it's back home taxation, depending on the country. VAT was introduced in 2018. The limits is $100,000, which is AED 375,000. You need to have a registration, which is mandatory. Up from $50,000 to 100,000, 187,000 to 375. It's optional. Below that, no need. But it's 5%, and the revenue, when it started in 2018, the government studies and all the analysis said it will be almost around 8 billion US dollars. Now in 2021, it's touched 26 billion US dollars in VAT. And the market has become much more transparent, and the market and the logistics ecosystem has become much clearer. Now with corporate tax, the entire system will become much more transparent. Free trade zones attracts the main FDI attraction, formulating government laws and regulations, re-export without payment of duties. Duties are imposed only if it comes to the mainland, exemption for corporate tax. Even now, corporate tax is not for free zone companies which are doing business with outside UAE. Licensing in free zones, various license, similar ways. You have manufacturing, assembling, trading, professional activities based on free zone regulations. Now, in free zone, there is freedom to recruit employees, no personal income taxes. You have corporate tax exemption for 50 years, renewable for another 50 years. You have 100% foreign and export tax exemptions and 100% foreign ownership. Now, free zones, again, it's catalyst for countries inward FDI, employment generation, and backbone of diversification of economic activities. Total number 42 free zones here. Dubai has the maximum. That's why we talk Dubai more. You have Abu Dhabi 5, Sharjah, Ajman, Ras Al Khaimah 2, Al Quwain 1, Fujairah 3. Now, the point noted is in Dubai, if you talk of IT, fintech, deep tech, anything related to that, there are 5 free zones which are there. You have Dubai Internet City, you have Dubai Media City, you have Dubai Studio City, you have Dubai Outsource Zone, and Dubai Silicon Oasis. All these are catering to IT business. So an expert or an advice is needed for a global investor only to select this. This is where it is interviewing, because everything has its own merits. So it depends on the businessman to understand his business, how it functions, where all regions he need to operate, and then choose the free zone. That's very important. So it's very easy now, because you have Invest in Dubai portal, which is 24/7 by 365. You can go to portal, you can get all information. But I say 95% of the businessmen will come to Dubai, understand this, and then take it over, because that's very important, because setting up a business. Regulations, recent regulations allow the free zones to operate from mainland also. You have a free zone and you want to do business with mainland, you can have your own license. You don't have to come to the mainland and do. In the free zone, there is an area for mainland, you can operate from there. And yearly licenses and leased and land offices, the employee visa is 3 years. And normally they look for audited financials, all the free zones need, but now corporate tax coming, this is going to be. Now licensing process, it's a single window clearance. As I said, decision on the free zone is the most important. You're preparing a business plan, that's very important, focused on the business. These are all strictly checked, verified, and if it's only conforming to the law, it's only approved. That's very clear. Submission of project profile, business plan, I won't go into, because most of you are in business. Preliminary approval, you get an application, go into the final approval, then you go for the space, land, office, warehouse, whatever, then put the capital, final documentation, you get the license, and then the visas, depending on how you need. The overall framework for, depending on the kind of business, it can be a week to 10 days. It can go from 10 to 30 days. Normally, we see lagging in this business delays because the documents are not correct. Even though the entire list is given, people may not bring, people will think one document is not done, it's okay, it will be approved. No, it's very strict. So that's the point which has to be very clear. Once the documents are ready 100%, and if it's taken, it can be done in a week, 10 days, depending on the license. Can go 30, industries will go to 30 to 60 days. But these are all have come down after the new, it may even can be done in 45 days, but I wanted to say it's 30 to 60 days. Now, activities in mainland, the local and mainland retailing is definitely, you need to have, if you want a free zone to do a retailing in mainland, the business to do their own business, you need to take a separate license. Contracting and installation, always given in the mainland. The logistics custom broking license is always part of the mainland. National industrial license, you need a mainland license. Activities in mainland which are for 100% UAE nationals is manpower and recruitment even now, and commercial agencies. Now, Vision 2030 is the vision charts the next journey. Want to be the best countries, GDP to be increased by 65%, confident and socially responsible citizens, enhanced international standing, sustainable and diversified economy. That's the vision. 100% foreign ownership on onshore companies in UAE is the game changer, which was announced last year. The commercial companies law has been changed and rechanged a few times. And as of the latest one, which is announced, there was 51, 41 ownership, 49 ownership, and that's been again done a correction. And finally, it is for allowing certain sectors above, it's now 100% ownership for foreign businesses in UAE. This is the first country to do that and announced, and there's a wide interest from various countries. I would say from India, major companies have come and set up in UAE. I'll give you two examples. Himalaya, which is a 94-year-old brand in India, was talking, they had their retailing business here, actually distribution business. They have a contract manufacturing. But when this was announced, this was informed to people who are in the business. So we were talking to businessmen, were talking to us. And when it was announced, the Himalaya Group wanted to come and set up their global operations here. And they have set up their global manufacturing hub in UAE, which is a 250,000 square foot plus space. And the global R&D entity in Dubai again, which is almost 100,000 square foot. The entire process, they have a holding office here, they have their global headquarters here. And the entire process was very seamless. And the entire Dubai government entities, the governance, the economic department, as well as the FDI, they all stood for Himalaya, a foreign investor like Himalaya, and was part of us in taking their journey to UAE very seamlessly. And they are extremely happy of that. And those widespread media, one of the largest investors who had come and set up their operations in UAE, 100% foreign ownership. And we have many other investors, local as well as foreign owners, like Tata's Tanishq has come and set up here, and many others. This foreign ownership is list of activities in Abu Dhabi, 1,105. And in Dubai, it's 1,062 activities. Most of the activities are covered, except for strategic importance, defense, telecommunication, banking, money exchange, finance and insurance, commercial agency, fisheries related. These are subject to who is coming. If there are negotiations between a major defense supportive company from India to come and set up their operations here, which will definitely, because they're a huge group, it will be definitely considered. That's what we believe. So subject to exceptions, these are norms still strictly verified. Now, what changed from 2018 FDI law is there is no minimum capital requirement, no emiratization quota, no requirement for service agent for foreign company branch. Each emirate is to determine percentage of ownership. There are certain emirates which may have their own kind of formula. So that is left to the Emirate, or the 7 Emirates to do what they would like to do. Impact of the change is liberalizing business activity in the UAE. Foreign shareholders may consider return restructuring and infusing more capital. UAE's position as an investment destination, not only for FMCG, but for manufacturers, industrial activities, and many others. And 100% ownership, whether it is foreign or with tie-up with UAE, you have 100% ownership on your businesses, on your entities, on your residences. Now comes the added attraction. Now, this was the game changer, though this needs certain kind of changes on the immigration side, which is very important, which has been long-standing. So golden visas, long-term visas for investors and entrepreneurs. We have special golden visas, which are for entrepreneurs, specialized talents, creative talents, and STEM specialists, basically coding students who are specialized in coding. If they come for a job immediately, if they are, depending on the kind of company, they are given a golden visa for, as I said, creative individuals in culture and art, inventors, exceptional talents, executives, outstanding, so many students. Many of my friends, students who are doing their medicine and their STEM courses are offered the golden visas. Then there is a business visa. You can get a long-term business visa. You can get a retirement visa, which is, they're looking for a retirement living ecosystem in Dubai. And as you know, you have more than 10 golf courses here. You have extremely high number of beaches here. And beaches and golf courses and restaurants and all these entertainment are promoted, and they're known as Dubai destinations now. So all this, many of my friends who come, they get only 1 hour to come and meet me, but they are on a golf tour. Actually, they play across golf clubs and go. It's a major activity from India and UK and many other countries. So residence visa program for remote working professionals, companies who wants to have their professionals outside can have the UAE visa, they can come, or from outside companies can have their people live here with their visas without a company being here. So UAE citizenship for foreigners also are for selected doctors, specialists, intellectual scientists, and creative talents. Now, since I'm talking to KMA and we are talking on the India side, I must say about what happened, what change that happened for India as a country from 2014 onwards till now. And as we speak now, tomorrow, not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, February 18 is the day when the UAE and India is agreed, and it's all announced to sign a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, which is a bilateral trade agreement. The first time, the fastest bilateral trade agreement signed between two countries, whether it's from the UAE side or from the India side. The Minister of India, as well as the UAE Minister for Trade, Foreign Trade, has announced this is going to be the fastest bilateral agreement signed. Such was the speed of interaction between India and UAE. Now, that's currently happening. I'll tell you what has happened before. The new Prime Minister was sworn in 2014 May. Within 12 months, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi did the historic visit to UAE in 2015. 15 months. This is why we call it, or the UAE says it's historic. This is the visit by an Indian Prime Minister. India is just 3 hours, 3.5 hours, maximum 4 hours. This is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister after 34 years. So the business happening to them was trading, rice trading, sugar trading, all those things. So the visit had an importance. The vision was to change both sides, India and UAE. So immediately after this August, within say 6 months, if you talk of 4 or 6 months, in February 2016, there was a reciprocal visit by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and the Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Forces to India. This is with the Crown Prince of Dubai, Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid. I'm very humbled and honored to say that I was part of this. I traveled through the day, and I was amazed by the day the turn up in India happened within that span of time. how the meetings were happening, how minutes were noted, how things were taken secondly. So I was very happy seeing that change. I'm talking probably on business. And in Jan 2017, again, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed visited India this is again in a span of 1 year, as the chief guest on the Republic Day. And then they signed the comprehensive strategic partnership. Now, what we are signing as bilateral economic partnership, this strategic partnership where UAE government announced $75 billion. They created investments to India with a UAE-India business corridor. And in February 2018, the Dubai's biggest event is World Government Summit. And the keynote speaker was the Indian Prime Minister, again within a span of 1 year. And you see, again in 2019, there were talks regular on the election victory. There were friendship was in ADNOC Tower, was lit up with the flags of India when during the swearing-in ceremony. And the late Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj was first time in the history invited for the Overseas Organization of Islamic Cooperation. She was doing the guest of honor. And you have in 2019, again, another visit by the Indian Prime Minister was given the Order of Zayed, the highest decoration awarded by the UAE to kings, presidents, and head of states. Then the Hindu temple permission that is undergoing. You have Abu Dhabi Book Fair. You have a commemorative stand of Mahatma Gandhi, the stamp of Mahatma Gandhi released here. Rupee card was launched here. Reserve Bank of India and UAE authorities signed a $500 million currency swap agreement. NASDAQ, Dubai celebrated Indian Independence Day in a very high note. Dubai Chamber opens up Mumbai office, 40,000 Indian firms. UAE National Investors Council was set up with the UAE Minister for Economy as the chairman. Now comes the strategic partnership. What is going to be achieved? There is a lot of impact on trade and investment flows with a vision behind. Food and energy security, manpower and skills, defense, space and security cooperation, literature and culture, people-to-people connections. Now, energy security till then was just India was nowhere there. Evolved from a simple buyer-seller relationship with ADNOC to a India is set up the first strategic petroleum reserve in Mangalore ADNOC to hire half of India's 2.5 million ton underground crude oil. ADNOC will store oil in Padur, in 2 strategic petroleum reserves at Padur. Now, India got the first concessions in the history. India got oil concessions in UAE, awarded. This was a consortium set up by Indian Oil Corporation. Again, I'm honored to say we were part of the setting up here of the Indian Oil Corporation foreign offices. And the way Indian Oil Corporation replied to us and the way UAE authorities reported the fast mechanism, there are many clearances to be done, which definitely is there. But that happened in a very swift mode. So you had 100% subsidiary of Bharat Petroleum was awarded 10% participation in Abu Dhabi's Lower Sukhum Basin concession. So this is where I'm not going into this. Saudi Aramco also is part of a major project with $45 billion refinery they have taken. And this is again in partnership with HPCL and BPCL. I'll go to the food security. That's the most important thing, which was never seen. Investments of $5 billion by the UAE in the next 3 years. It's selected Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Gujarat because the access to UAE via ports benefits 2 billion farmers, creates 200,000 jobs across India. And UAE to invest in mega food processing parks, huge cold storage facilities, warehousing, logistics and transport, so that the crop becomes an MR in tie-up, MR group in tie-up with the ruler of Dubai and the ruler's office is fully coordinated. UAE entities can buy food at a cheaper price. UAE benefits it from farmers for a better price. Don't go into this. India exports $2.5 billion of food to the UAE every year. The joint food corridor will triple the volume to $7 billion in 3 years. 20 products are identified. Even as I read the latest news in the nine months, the food business to India has doubled compared to the previous years. Now, about logistics and infrastructure, which is very much needed in India, DP World launches a UAE India Bridge initiative. $3 billion investments for, which is part with the India government called India's National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, which DP World is the backend to develop projects in sea and river ports, freight corridors, special economic zone, inland container terminals, and logical infrastructure, and as cold storage. DP World is setting up the first free zone in India, in Chennai, in 138 acres of land. And DP World also has invested in trucks and rates. DP World vision is to get the goods from the customer to the port, including land or whatever transport, and bring it to UAE. And DP World controls 10% of the world's logistics movement, the cargo movements. Virgin Loop is owned by DP World, but they had a project signed from Mumbai to Pune, but unfortunately, due to the governance change, I think it's been standstill. Now, on the software collaboration, as I said, there was a lot of interaction between students, between different communities, and I won't go into that again. UAE nationals were given 5-year multiple entry visas, and this was again done for the first time in the history. And regular meetings and exhibitions and seminars. Real estate, I don't go. Startups cluster, UAE cluster to India. There is a UAE-India AI bridge, which is a bilateral artificial bridge agreement by the UAE Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence, and it's signed by India's Managing Director, Deepak Bagla, expect to generate US $20 billion in economic benefits for the next 10 years. Invest India, Startup India will all work together. There is a joint committee with the UAE Ministry for AI, and the world's first university in AI is being already set up in Abu Dhabi. RuPay card launch, I told. Health and wellness, again, I need to touch because that's a very important sector. There is a proper agreement signed between Dubai Health Authority, Dubai Healthcare City, and the Ministry of Health in India, Ministry of Ayush. India is fully endorsed by the UAE government, and the focus on Ayurveda, yoga, naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, and homeopathy. The first World Ayush Conference was held in Dubai, which attracted 700 delegates from 20 countries and 25,000 visitors. And the Dubai World Trade Center is marketing now. And it's a MICE event. It's part of the government of Dubai agenda to sell this event and market and bring business. The second World Ayush Conference was also held in UAE, with the US $2.5 billion Ayurvedic products market in India is expected to reach US $8 billion by 2022. Now, India permits 100% FDI in these sectors. So India and UAE to collaborate on exchange of human resources, clinical management practice, lobbying with regulators on what value-based healthcare hubs can offer. High focus on doubling the numbers of medical tourists. Defense and security cooperation is very important. India is assisting UAE in developing air defense systems and repairing defense equipments. L&T is supplying acclimatized air defense guns and interceptor boats to UAE. UAE has been buying from Europe and US before. So military to military exercises, defense production. Reliance Defense is in tie-up with Emirates Defense Industries Company for MRO, military equipment, and platforms. Now, US-India trade relations, approximately 100,000 Indian companies in the UAE. Population of Indians in the UAE are 3.3 million plus, which is the largest population. And UAE is India's third largest trade partner and second. If you take from UAE perspective, it's second largest partner. UAE third after US and China, whereas if you take from the UAE perspective, after China, second. India-UAE trade volume is US $83 billion and target is to reach 100 billion. Now, when we signed this agreement on February 18th, the target is to reach in 2025, $100 billion. Now, that different companies in UAE are not of which are present very actively and not good. Now, one more country I selected, I'll go quick on that. It's Israel. There was absolutely no connection with Israel. It was not there in UAE, no connection. But the Abraham Accord was signed on September 15, 2020. There are a whole slew of bilateral agreements signed within 30 days. The airports were open, visas were opened, cultural dialogue started, flights started, acquisition of flights happened, major businesses got tied up, and there were cargo movements on October. We are talking of September, October, the cargo movement started. And as it stands today, I think it's around 400 plus days. There are 200,000 plus Israelis who had visited UAE. You take from 2020, there was no Israeli visit. From the last 200,000 Israelis, and many events happened. Even ourselves, we did 4 major events, even face-to-face events with 27 Israeli Directors Union members coming with the Chief of Directors Union in our offices, as well as they were on a government visit. They came to our office. We had a session here. So there are many things which I know. There are Emirates Flight Catering, which serves more than 100 airlines in UAE and all over the world, started kosher food facility. So Al Abdur Group signing, World Trade Center and Export Institute for MICE, which is the events on Israel and related, which are going to be $500 million in a year, the turnover. We have stem cell research cooperation between UAE and Israel. Banking, the banking announced, governors from both the countries signed the agreement. You have stock exchange, we have diamond trading started, and Abu Dhabi Investment Office set up their own offices there, and a lot of music exchange, cultural exchanges between UAE and Israel. And there is a new UAE-Israel corridor started, and now we have reached a corridor which is UAE-Israel-India corridor. That's where, and there is a new participation now when after this two years of Israel being, there is a quad, which is a UAE, Israel, US, India, which talks about the region and outside. And there is a lot of participation on that levels. Now, I will go to the current points which are very valid now. As I showed India, now what is happening is 500 startups from India are being brought to Dubai for the Expo 2020, participation by the government of Abu Dhabi and Dubai at the Innovation Hub, which is created at the India Pavilion. As of today, Elevate 10 session is happening. Tomorrow it is Elevate 11. We have 318 companies already come. Up to March 31, we have a number of 500. Out of 318, 260 are from India. The others are from UAE. So such is the impact. And these are real good selected startups by the government, Startup India, and sent, and they are getting funding. And I'll tell you in a moment how they are getting funded. Which I have already, the Dubai Silicon Oasis, one of the largest free zones, which is owned by the government of Dubai, is tied up with HSBC, India government, and East My Trip. And they are acquiring 20 startups straight into the stream. And this is all Indian startups getting their scaling up and scaling up. UAE launched a program, again, parallelly, UAE launched a program for skilling up 10,000 girls from public school on STEM. They tied up with the University of Berkeley, California, Berkeley, UPenn, World Economic Forum, and UNESCO, and other 15 elite universities to see that they are skilling up their youth. And girl participation are very high in UAE. And there is an app which is created now, which talks about future emerging technologies, robotics and automation, blockchain, future of space, green technology, and 5G networks. So it's all getting ready for a meta world, which we talk now. And about 50 million creators around the world, they have built their own creator economy, estimated at over $100 billion. Upskilling now with these early glimmers are the only way when we see the metaverse coming up in next 5 to 10 years. Now, District 2020 in UAE, taking 80 innovative startups, and they are giving 2-year free rents and assistance on visas. Again, it's all the relationship and the connectivity which are bringing all this. And these startups have to be in green energy, smart city. They're all smart mobility technologies which are all standard. Dubai carbon abatement 2030, 30% reduction on carbon emissions. And Abu Dhabi canceled our 20,000 requirements for businesses here, which makes Abu Dhabi far better competitive. X-Cube is being set up in Dubai financial market to take financial market to the next UAE dirham 3 trillion. Now, property market, I've already said. I'll go how UAE is a future ready nation quickly. UAE Centennial Plan 2071 is there is a team working, there is a director general, there is a space area 2071 which is ready. So UAE is talking 2071, UAE strategy for artificial intelligence, UAE national innovation strategy, Mars 2117. In 100 years, a presence in Mars. And these are all not on paper. They are all institutions which are set up and teams working. UN Agenda 2030 to achieve UN Special Sustainable Goals, Emirates Lunar Mission 2024. I must say a word on this because there is an event which happened 2 months back on the space where US space engineers, US, India, top space scientists were here. There is Israel's space scientists. There is a collaboration for future on the space. Environment Vision 2030 on environment and National Advances Sciences Agenda 2031, UAE Energy Strategy 2050, National Food Security 2051, UAE Water Security Strategy 2036, and Operation 300 billion and UAE Industrial Strategy and Entrepreneurial Nation. These are the two things I must say a word. The current contribution of industries to the UAE market is 133 billion dirhams. The target is to make it 300 billion dirhams in a span of 3 years. And Entrepreneurial Nation is the entity which calls out to people all over the world to make UAE an entrepreneurial, the most preferred. Now UAE is the most preferred entrepreneurial nation in the world and the 4th worldwide, according to Global Entrepreneurship Index. Now the call is to make this the most preferred destination, #1 entrepreneurial nation in the world. So UAE is ready to get there, to take you all to the future. And may I conclude with a saying, with a quote, recent quote by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and the ruler of Dubai. The future belongs to those who can imagine it, design it, and create it. It isn't something you create, rather, it isn't something you evade, rather create. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I think my time is up.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sudhir Kumar, for a very exhaustive data-oriented presentation, going from history, beginning the 50 years of growth of UAE, and even mentioning about the Centennial Plans by 2071, where Dubai is destined to be the numero uno future city, and saying that, okay, that's currently you're the 4th, UAE is the 4th, standing on the 4th as the entrepreneurial nation is concerned, and the focus is to make it the 1st, the numero uno again. Okay, quite a bit of data that we have been able to pick up in terms of understanding the market, understanding the country, etc. Predominantly, your presentation revolved around business and things on that nature. Now, I would like to, before I take 1 or 2 questions already has come, I will take that up. But before we take it up, I just have 1 or 2 questions. Yeah, 2, 3 things. We always historically people in the Middle East, whether it is at that time, whether it was called UAE or not, it's not a question. We used to call them as Arabs, the people who had come from that side, and they were the middlemen, and they used to, we had silk routes, we have sea routes, and we have spice routes, and we had the monsoon routes, etc., happening between the Middle East and now. And then going forward to be the, as you plan, as you presented, to be the first in the list of entrepreneurial nations in the world. There are some questions. First question that I would like, because you didn't touch upon, I would like you to tell the audience about it, because myself, I have personally seen it and experienced it. One element of the safety of living across the world is the law and order around the cities that we stay. While I am proud being an Indian, I have my challenges as far as some of the cities in India, even as far as the law and order, etc., is concerned, and also many cities of the world where people dread to go. And one thing I have noticed in UAE, particularly in Dubai, is the safety that people feel inside. They are not worried about, they are not apprehensive about their safety element at all. Would you be able to speak on this, please, for a moment?
Yeah, in fact, I would say I've been to many countries, and I would say rate UAE as a country which is offering the best of security. for people living in this country, for women, for people working, and people who are working overnight, and everyone. You can walk on, anyone can walk on the road safely at any time. The reason being, the UAE has everything to offer. You have restaurants closing at as early as morning 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and people going out of the restaurants. And you have malls closing at early morning, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So you have people are always out. And Dubai is very strict right from the beginning to see that security is enforced, laws are there, security is enforced, and there are no other considerations for that. You can do, it's very clearly written what you can do and what you cannot do. And if you follow the rule, that's perfectly fine. And whether it's doing business, whether it is interacting with foreigners, whether it is interacting a commercial transaction in business, or whether it is walking out, whether it is having a game or whatever you need to do, it's all about following the rules and going ahead. And people are happy doing it, and we follow that. Everyone follows that because it's strictly enforced. That's the reason, and which probably, and again, it's all covered. You have a lot of cameras around, so it's easy to play. It's a small country, it's a small place, and it's all. But still, a lot of things happen which are strictly again enforced and controlled.
Right. Yeah. Another thing that you mentioned in the thing, which is about the changes in the visa regulations and the property ownership, which you said in passing. And I also pick up the input from you that it's a nation of about 10.1 million people, with only 10% of them being the local nationals, that is UAE nationals. Okay. And having more than 200 plus nationalities living inside the United Arab Emirates, particularly in Dubai. And you have changed the visa regulations have been changed. There is, as you rightly said, about the golden visa, etc., etc., etc. And there are property ownership. And for quite some time, we have been watching about property people from outside coming and buying in properties. That is full ownership of the full holder, full holder of the properties. Can you please add some light onto that, please? Ownership property, yes.
The UAE population is 1 million. We are talking about every 10% of that million population UAE nationals. The other 90% are from approximately 200. Now, out of that, 3.3 million are youth. And then you have Pakistanis, you have Bangladeshis, you have Sri Lankans, you have Filipinos. And when you leave Sri Lankans, and after that, the highest was from UK, which is around 350, 400,000 nationals. And you have USA, which touches around 75,000. And then all other countries we are talking of 30,000, 35,000, 40,000. That's the split, the way all the nationalities. Right. Now, coming back to the UAE national 1 million again, you have the senior people, senior and the people who are elderly who don't go out. They are coming to approximately 100,000. And then you have the youth, which is including the students, which is touching at around 300,000 population. So we are talking of active UAE population is around, let's say, 300,000 people who are really active. They are educated, they are being trained at global universities, they come with the best of education, and they are trained on specific subjects, and they are in the market. Now, on the property ownership, there is a variety of ownership. You can buy a 1-bedroom apartment, you have a studio, you have 2 bedrooms, you have 3 bedrooms at specific areas of in Dubai. You can buy a land and construct your property, to buying a ready-made villa or townhouses, and many options. You have on the desert, you have on the beachfront, many options. Now, ownership is 100%. You buy the property, it is transferred to your name, and there is a registration fee. Like India, you pay a registration fee, and that registration fee is paid, and that's done. And if you need a property visa is given. If you are doing business here, you don't need a property visa, that's fine. You are not opting for the property visa, that's fine. But if you are opting for a property visa, the property visa gets annulled when the property is sold, because that visa is connected to the property. So suppose somebody wants to come here and invest in a property and to keep a visa, perfect. His family, they can stay here. There are conditions, so you need to invest more than $1 million dirhams on the property, which is standard. And then the visa is given, he can stay, he or she can stay here. But if you sell the property, that is gone. That visa, because it's tagged to the property.
Understand. Now I see that, I mean, it's a comment that we have seen in comparison that, compared to many of the major metros and cosmopolitan cities of the world, the property prices in Dubai are comparatively very cheap, very much on the lower side. Why didn't the government actually increase this? And because it is a future city, you could make a lot of money out of the property itself. Why was that not done?
Yeah, in fact, UAE and Dubai wants more people to come. Actually, during the challenging times, if I take the last 2 years, I know more than, for my records, the records are not 100%, I don't know, accurate, but more than 1,000 people came from different parts of the world to reside in UAE because you get vaccines, the challenge is taken very well. In the initial stages, we also had, UAE also had it. But then after that, that is a shock for everyone. No one expected this. But then once that is done, UAE has risen to a level where it's been treated well and it's been considered well. And a lot of people came and stayed here because you have a whole lot of global institutions here. You want to do a CAS business school, it's available here. You want to do a University of Birmingham. If you don't want to go to Birmingham, it's all here. You have a Rochester Institute here. You have many institutes here. All the global universities have come, and you have the Middlesex University here. The very popular Heriot-Watt University has got a 3,000 people campus. You have Manipal University here. You have SP Jain very active here. BITS Pilani here. So you have education. You have your faith. Whatever faith you follow, you have the places to go. When Israel tie-up started, they immediately start constructing a synagogue. So all the faith can be practiced here. You have your favorite restaurants. If you are want to go to a particular kind of Michelin star, everything is here. So people love to come here and stay here and take care, and you have flights all over the world. So the UAE wants to be not only a business place, but people will reside, people will come and retire, and stay this as a destination for their.
Very good, very good. Now, I just come to your economy aspect of it. Predominantly we had seen that the economy of UAE has revolved around trading and services to begin with, and less of manufacturing. How much has manufacturing improved as far as the total overall GDP of UAE is concerned? Because we have mostly seen that it's a trading and service-oriented economy. And has manufacturing started creating dent in the UAE GDP, please?
Yeah, manufacturing actually has to pick up. There are many companies which are manufacturing very active. In fact, Unilever manufactures 4 or 5 products for UAE for the global region from here. Same is the case, I said, Dabur and many others. There are many contract manufacturing happening. But the target is to definitely increase manufacturing, increase industrial activities. And definitely the challenge in the last 2 years has affected the economy like any other country. It has affected here also. But UAE is all out back to normal to see that it offers 100% ownership. It offers all that services.
If you could kindly give us, Sudhirji, about the percentage of manufacturing to the UAE GDP, do you have a data point on that? If I split the GDP of UAE into services, into agriculture, into manufacturing, etc., what could be the manufacturing component of the GDP in UAE?
Oh, as of now, I would say probably 4%, 5%, because it's valued at the contribution is valued at 133.
Right.
Dirhams.
All right.
So I have now the target is to make it 300 billion.
Great.
300.
Yeah. I have a question from Mr. Balakrishnan, who is our Vice President as well as Executive Director of Geojit Financial Services. He is asking this question to you, Sudhirji. What would be the impact of 9% corporate tax, especially for small and medium companies? HR cost also has gone up. Stable currency and tax-free friendly business environment was major attraction. With taxation, one of the attraction will go. That's a question that he's asked.
No, it's a very good question. Thank you. 9%. See, on a business perspective, a corporate tax will definitely add value because the transparency brings in transparency to the business. Number two, it's based on turnover. There are certain conditions for the tax, but of course, if you take it, whether the margins will go down, definitely. But the businesses are, UAE is doing the best to add business. And again, when you had 51-49%, you need to pay tax on the total turnover on the profit. But you can own 100%. So now the ownership is not shared with anyone. So all that benefits have been done. You can own 100%. Whereas if it was the other way, the whole tax will come to you. You have to be paid on a share. So, of course, if you see the rupee challenges, like that was introduced, we had a 1-year challenge, but then the businesses were doing good. Why people come here is, irrespective of if that coming or not, is it's very easy to do business. If you know your business and if you are focused on business, there is no interruption in business. You can work 24/7 by 365. There is no red tapeism. There is no one is going to interfere in your business. You can work whole day, whole night, and you can put your teams running and people are working. And you have all laws, labor laws, very clear now. You stick to the labor laws, you think if everyone is happy, things can be done, which is a very boom because the laws are not changing. You're doing something, then it's cancelled. No. So this is an ideal advantage. That's why people are coming. So tax is a must.
Yes. So
UAE has to follow international laws and international the way to move forward. So tax was expected when VAT came.
As a corollary to what Bala was asking, it was originally there was no tax in UAE, and there wasn't a plan of taxing. In fact, some of the cases where even the predecessor said that in our country there should not be any tax, etc., etc. Now the tax is coming in, and it is a 9% VAT, and you have corporate tax, etc. The tax, when it comes in, it goes up, Sudhirji. So that is the worry that a lot of people who come there to do business with,
Exactly.
See, you escape all these 30%, 40%, 50% tax regimes in the senior countries of the world. Come down to Dubai to actually prepare this thing. And when there also a tax regime is there, and thereafter, if it is going up, there is a worry factor. And therefore, I resonate well with Bala. What is your answer to that?
Can I add one more point which I missed actually?
Yes, please.
The license fee, the rents on the government free zones, have been considerably reduced also in parallel. All the lot of fees connected to licenses and related to renewals have also been reduced. These are all being done. I didn't mention that. And even the free zone rental space fee also have been reduced. And there is a fee which is on the labor. There is a 5% charge that also is being taken. That's a big on the rental accommodation. There was a 5% that also being taken off for business. So there are a lot of value additions given. 9% is on the profits, which definitely by 2022 it is going to be it's coming.
Thank you, Sudhirji. Since there are no other questions from the chat room, I'm finishing with the last question here. So because we discussed about the startup and the stand-up and the scale-up, etc. Okay, we in India had created a fairly good startup ecosystem. In fact, we have one or two ecosystem which is doing exceedingly well in Bangalore and National Capital Region. And fortunately for you to understand, Kerala also is sort of the third largest startup ecosystem, predominantly in the technology sector. Okay. Now, to create an ecosystem, it is not an easy. And the ecosystem must definitely contain government regulatory policies, ease of doing business, registration policies, etc. Added that by seed funding, angel funding, and VC funding, and all those things to go with those grants and all those encouragements and the accelerations and the incubations and all those mentoring that is required for that. Now, that being the necessary parameters of a startup ecosystem build-up, how much of this is there in UAE as far as startup ecosystem building up is concerned?
This is, as of now, I would say, is very much there. There is a government incubation center, the Hong Kong incubation center. There is Dubai Entrepreneurship Center, which is again an incubation center. And there is many other incubation centers and accelerators also in the country. Funding part is now being done, carried out. It was not there, I would say. So there is a tie-up which Indian government started with the UAE government, which is now being, UK also is starting. UK Department of International, I'm a very priority member and a premium member of the DIT, where we support UK businesses also. DIT is already starting, Department of India, they have started a scheme called EISS, Enhanced Investment Support Scheme, for the Middle East, Africa, and Pakistan. So it's coming up. So all countries are getting into that, and India is accelerated it to a very high level with the Expo 2020. And again, Expo 2020 investments are one of the largest exhibition pavilions is by India. So indeed, our relationship has grown very, very close with the bilateral trade agreement. It is getting much closer. So the ecosystem which is prevailing in Kerala definitely should find, and when the Chief Minister was here, there were a lot of talks on those directions and how far it is getting active mode. We'll see in that time. But the Chief Minister was very serious in taking it forward. And all the meetings he conducted were very professional, core to the business and talking very serious. So I was attending all the meetings. So I expect Kerala also will scale up, because you can, when you come up in Dubai, you can scale up internationally. You're talking to a different audience and everything is here. You have the ports very nearby. You don't have to go far. You have the banks nearby. You have the consulate. It's all very nearby and you can work. And the youth, this is what UAE is addressing now. The millennials, the youth, the dreamers, and the young generation, the second generation businesses, which have got high liquidity. The top big people from all the states of India and all the countries have come here. They have set up their businesses. They know Dubai. They know UAE. But if you talk to the new generation business in Mumbai or Delhi, which are unicorns now, they have never done business with Dubai and UAE. They have in a different market. They're dreaming of different. So for them to come here is the target. And India, 42 the startups have turned unicorns in the last 1 year. UAE's target is to bring 20 unicorns by 2031. We have a long time to go, but that's the plan. Entrepreneurial nation and all this are bringing businesses from India, from different parts of the world, from Israel, to this connectivity between various countries to see that they reach unicorns.
Thank you, Sudhirji. Thank you so very much. For the last 80 minutes, this meeting has been on. And for the last 70 minutes, you had been speaking. Wonderful stamina. I must definitely appreciate that. Point number one. Point number two, too much of data points that we have received on UAE, including and very positively so. And that should actually give us a lot of input, a lot of food for thought to chew upon to see how we can actually. And of course, as you know, that UAE is not a strange country or a strange state and city to Kerala. They are fairly conversant and familiar with the UAE things. The fact that more than about 30% of the population of 10.1 million people are from this country, which also has that close proximity, definitely do help. And the UAE-India bilateral trade agreement, which is going to come up and which is going to actually boost up things in a much bigger way. Of course, we see that when you go back in history and seeing that a nation which has formed about 50 years back, whose currency was Indian rupee, which is now gone to dirham, and the linkages are re-established very well. Thank you so very much for giving us this input. Thank you so very much for the time. I would return you back to our chair of the session, Nirmala Lily. Nirmala Lily, all yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Moderator, Mr. S.R. Nair, for moderating the session brilliantly as usual. Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Sudhir Kumar. That was a plenteous information, awesome presentation, extremely tempting facilities and benefits, ease of doing business, which is very tempting and enticing to come to UAE for any organization, be it entrepreneurship, established one or startup. Happy to note that UAE is the most preferred destination in the world. And you have also mentioned about the Expo 2022 Dubai, UAE. There are 500 startups are already there participating and getting benefits, especially for funding. And the best investing destination, UAE. We will remember that. And UAE and India new growth story was very interesting. Bilateral trade agreement signed. That's really great. And as Mr. Saj was also mentioning, and you have ended with His Highness Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nayan's quote that future belongs to who can ignite, design, and create. That is really great, sir. Thank you so very much. And it was really, really highly informative and tempting. And I'm sure that there are a lot of Indians are moving to UAE soon. And with this, I now invite our treasurer, Mr. Bibu Punuran. He is our treasurer and the director of Medivision Group of Companies. Could you please propose word of thanks?
Yeah, I'm sorry to break the protocol. Madhavji, will you want to say something on this? Madhav Chandran? Madhav? He's not there. Okay. Let's do the word of thanks. Yes, sir. Bibu.
Thank you, dear Nirmala and SRG. Good evening, everyone. Indeed, it was just like past President SRG said. It was indeed a very, very enlightening evening. I think you have taken us for over the last 70 minutes into UAE, its investment culture, and everything, Mr. Sudhir Kumar. I was actually listening to, or rather seeing a video of someone interviewing a citizen in Nigeria and asking as to why that country has not progressed. Because if you look at it, maybe about 30 years back or 50 years back, they were one of the most oil-rich countries in the world. And today, where are they? They're nowhere on the world map. This was being compared. He was being asked the same question to an UAE citizen, and the UAE citizen was saying, "It is our leadership that makes the difference. It is exactly the leadership that has destroyed a country like Nigeria or many other countries with lots of natural resources, but a country with actually nothing but a little bit of even in the Gulf countries, we could say that UAE has probably the lowest oil reserves, and yet they have progressed so much just because of the vision of its leaders. And I must say that as a Keralite, as an Indian, India has really progressed. Many Indians have progressed. There are lots and lots of rags to riches stories. If you look at it, people who have lost everything in India have gone to this small country, which is just probably a dot in the world, and made up for all their losses, and are now today millionaires or billionaires, as we call them. It's all because of this great country called the United Arab Emirates. This leadership actually makes the difference, and at the same time, the rulers of the UAE are really focused. They have a vision, like you said, that vision 2030 or 2030 is there. The Centennial Vision for 2071 is there. A country that is liberal, yet so strict in its laws, flexible, yet rigid when it comes to setting up businesses and running them. A country that allows over 200 nationalities to live in peace and harmony, practice their own religions and beliefs. These are the factors that distinguish Dubai or the UAE from the rest of the world. And that is the reason why this country has progressed over the last 50 years from nothing to one of the greatest countries in the world, although it is just a small country on the world map. Thank you, Mr. Sudhir Kumar, for having enlightened us in this evening with so much of inputs on the UAE with your topic of the entrepreneurial nation, skill up, startup, scale up. And I'm sure that many sitting in this particular room, or rather this particular meeting, will surely be flying out there after your inspiring speech to set up new ventures out there in the UAE. Thank you so much for the great evening that you have given us. And we look forward also, and I understand that your group is a great group that is based out of the UAE, and you're a great leader, a great motivational speaker, and we are so grateful that you could spend so much of time with us today evening. Thank you. And let me also thank our Senior Vice President Nirmala Lilly for taking the lead in the absence of our President, rather he is there, but he cannot speak. That is the reason why he could not come on screen. Thank you, Madhav, for being there in the meeting, and thank you as usual, our Senior Vice President SR Nair for having taken the initiative to run us through this session so beautifully, so eloquently. Thank you so much, SRG, and all the management committee members present today. And I would also like to thank the secretariat team at the KMA and our sponsors, Sira, Medivision, Heal, and Varma Homes for this sponsoring this meeting today. Thank you one and all for yes, Mr. Sudhir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vice President and Chair of the meeting, Madam Nirmala Lily. Thank you, President.
Sudhirji, this is something physical. What you see on the screen, this is a shot of what is taken by you presenting. This would reach you physically, but this is a physical memento which will reach you physically very soon. Thank you very much. Okay, yours. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Bibu.
Bibu?
Thank you all.
Bibu?
Yes.
Is it over?
No. He's speaking. Mr. Sudhir is speaking. Your voice is little.
Something wrong with your audio, Mr. Sudhir.
Thank you to all the KMA members, and I request all of you to come to UAE and Dubai, and March 31st is when the Expo 2020 is over. And whoever, I think SR was with me a month back, Domon is a regular visitor, and I would love to see all of you here. We will try our level best to host you and support you also. So please come over, and my numbers are with SR. My mobiles are there, WhatsApp me, and I'm here, I'm not traveling. So please communicate before, and I would love to see all of you, all the KMA members. And our book, Doing Business in Dubai, book is reaching SR Nair. We published a book. This is our 7th edition of doing it, where His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Said Al Maktoum, the President of Dubai Civil Aviation and the Chairman of Dubai Airports and Chairman of Emirates Airlines and Group, has launched the book. And the foreword of the book also is written by His Highness. And we have His Excellency Muhammad Ibrahim Al Shibani, special. He's the Director General of the Ruler's Office in Dubai. So they are all talking in the message about us and the kind of value we have given in the last 28 years. I'm here for 33 years and we are here for almost 30 years. So that company we have given to Dubai. So that book is reaching SR. And I will see if I can get more books. I will send some numbers to KMA office for the members to share and read. And welcome all of you to Dubai. And good to meet all.
Thank you so much, sir. That is indeed a pleasant gesture. And yes, definitely very tempting as well. So definitely we will discuss with President and get back to you. Thank you very much. And Bibu, can I take this over?
Yeah. It's over to you, Nirmala.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bibu, for proposing a lot of thanks. And thank you, everyone. And President also came. President is here. Thank you, Mr. Madhav Chandran. And there's some announcement. Kindly make a note of it. The next program is book launch on the 21st of February at 5 p.m. The author is Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan and Mr. R. Srinivasan brothers. They had, sir was here before. I'm sure that most of you know Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan. And that will be a conversation with Mr. S.R. Nair. So please be there on 21st of February. And the next session will be StartCon session. That will be on last week of February. Date is not yet to be finalized. And we are planning for 2 huge functions in the month of March. Please don't miss it. One is Women Managers Conclave. Date is yet to be finalized, and our flagship event, annual convention. So please, I request the presence of each and every one of you. And once again, thank you one and all. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Sudhir. Thank you, President. Thank you, Mr. Sanail, Bibu, and all members participated here. And with this,